Okay, colleagues, we'll call our meeting to order. It's 6:38, and I'll look for someone to read the land acknowledgement, please. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan.
The municipality of North Grenville acknowledges that the municipality operates on the territory of the Anishinaabe. We recognize all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples who now call North Grenville their home. We respect and support the need for cultivating a strong relationship, and we commit to Indigenous-informed decision-making to foster the path towards reconciliation.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Next, we are going to opening remarks. So just a few highlights that staff and council colleagues, I'm sure, want us to bring to the attention of those watching or in the room. This Thursday, we will have the next Public Information Center meeting for the Mobility Master Plan. The Mobility Master Plan will include active transportation components as well as our master transportation plan. And really the function is how we can integrate all forms of transportation into future planning here at the municipality of North Grenville. So we encourage you to come out this Thursday from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Municipal Center and speak to our amazing team and give them your insights and priorities. Also, just a quick reminder that our Mental Health Initiatives Fund, which we established over a year ago, is open. It remains open for applications, and there are grants between $500 and $3,000, which are available to support grassroots projects that reduce stigma and improve mental health. The application deadline for this round is June 5th at 5 p.m., so not too far away. Another highlight, of course, is how dynamic our local arts, culture, and theater community is. To that end, we are keen to see the next community theater production, which opens this Thursday in this very space. We'd also like to remind folks that the Kempville Cruise Nights, organized by the County Road 43 Highway Club, are now every Friday, for the most part, at the Municipal Center on the flag side, and they're really excited to be here most Fridays, and they, as a very passionate group of car enthusiasts, particularly of older vehicles, they do make an effort to donate to a charitable cause every Friday, and it's a free, very family-friendly event. No one will be surprised to hear about Hay Day, which is happening on June 7th. Of course, an iconic community flea market, and also a vital fundraiser for the Kempville District Hospital. So mark your calendars for Hay Day. It starts on the Friday evening and goes into the Saturday. So you have two different opportunities to get some of the best deals going. And then, of course, we'll be welcoming a delegation shortly, but I wanted to also make sure everyone understood that we have the Pride Parade and After Party on Sunday as well, Sunday, June 7th. And I know our delegation this evening will speak about all things Pride in a short while. So with that, we'll look for the adoption of the agenda. And colleagues, I know that we do have a couple of amendments to the agenda this evening. I understand that the OVI front-ending agreement has been removed by staff, and as well as we are also looking to remove consideration of the sponsorship fund policy from tonight's agenda. I know there are some other items in regards to the consent agenda that we'll address during the consent agenda deliberations, but I believe for the purposes of the main agenda, that's what we're speaking to now. It's the sponsorship fund policy in particular that we're removing. It's also been brought to my attention that there are two sets of minutes that we cannot consider this evening, and they are the Agricultural Rural Affairs as well as CDAC that aren't here this evening, so we won't consider those as part of the minutes package. So with that, I will look to a council colleague to move in second, and I'll look to Deputy Mayor before we move. Thank you. Yes, we also do plan to reorder the agenda so that we can deal with the planning matter first and then move to other items on the agenda. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for that prompting. And with that, can I look to you to move the amended and reordered agenda? Thank you very much. Councillor Strachian is seconding. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Thank you. That carries. So next, we'll go to declarations of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Are there any declarations? I'm not seeing any. So then we will move on. We don't have any public meetings as it pertains to planning matters this evening. So we'll go straight to NG Pride, and it's my pleasure to welcome Diane Dewing, who's here to talk about NG Pride. Thank you. We're going to get someone to assist you. It can be tricky, Diane, so. Oh, dear. No, we can't. For the public record, I think we're going to offer you up a functioning mic from one of my colleagues, just so you can get started. We want to make sure anyone who's live streaming the meeting can hear you. You'll have to turn, yeah. Woohoo, we made it.
All right. So I want to thank council for allowing us to come forward and for your willingness to set forward a proclamation. I'm very, very proud of the work that we have done here in North Grenville in regards to Pride. I'm not saying life is always easy. I'm not saying that there are no bullies and there are no trolls. But a wise woman said this week, and I like her expressions. She says, there are slugs in every garden. It's important to notice the garden first. And I think that's where we are. This year, we're focusing on queer joy. With all the things that are going on in our world, I think it's really important that we remember how important joy is. And there is nothing like queer joy. So we have a number of things going on a little differently this year. I'm so excited for the flag raising. We will be bringing a violinist and a cellist as part of our queer community. We have an amazing and rich community here, and it's so wonderful to profile them. Also this year, we're launching a pre-party dance. It's a pop-up disco, and it looks to be loads and loads of fun. Already, population has received it with open hearts, and we have a DJ who is very well known, DJ Harry Peach, and we have all the bells, the whistles, the lasers, and all the things that make a disco a disco. So that should be loads of fun too. And for the all ages crowd, which is, I guess, where I fall most of the time, we're launching our Great Community Chalk Challenge. So we will be inviting teams, and we don't care how big your team is. We don't judge. We don't care. But you register your team, we'll give you a box of 22 vibrant chalks, and we challenge you to go out and to create your vision of the community you want to live in. Safe, inclusive, diverse, all of the things that we wish for every day. Once your picture is done, take a photo, send it to NG Pride, and we will have someone, we will have a panel of 5 who will be looking at all the photos and honorable mentions. There will be 5 honorable mentions. We'll be giving $50 gift certificates to the local venue of their choice. So that should be fun and something that you're never too old and you're never too young to get down and draw with chalk. One of the things that I do want to emphasize and truly underline to this community is that we are the only rural pride in Eastern Ontario that runs programs outside of the month of June. Our June is very full, but that's because all the other months are full too. Our community gathers monthly for potlucks. We have our senior pride that meets. We have our youth groups that meet. We have our trivia nights. There are so many activities going on, and that's all from the work of the community. We've tapped folks on the shoulder and allowed different people to take leadership roles at different times so that it's not always the same ones who are leaders. And that's how you build community. So thank you very much for this time. I've probably talked way too much, but 'tis my wont.
Thank you so much. Any questions, colleagues, at this stage of the game? I'm just curious, how are you planning in terms of the numbers for Kentville Pride? I know every year the march grows a little bigger. I think you have maybe the same start time or a slightly different start time this year?
Yeah, so we talk to members of the community, and we'll be starting at noon. That allows a number of churches. You know, it's really interesting. There are 5 North Grenville Anglican churches who have gotten together, and we created a poster for them that they can put in their church bulletin saying, "We are walking in faith and love." And so they will be able to join us. We have, I believe, 2 United Churches, again, because of our time change. But the real push were from the parents who said getting the kids up, ready, out the door, and ready to roll for 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning was just more than most bodies could bear. So noon it is.
That is a good observation about how to make it truly family friendly and inclusive. So having teenagers myself, as I know some of my colleagues do, I certainly relate to that. Finally, I just wanted to ask, when it comes to participating in other events, whether it's in the month of June or other parts of the year, what's the best way for people to connect with NG Pride?
We find most people prefer to connect with us through either our Facebook or Instagram page, but there are very many who connect directly through either info@ngpride.ca or admin@ngpride.ca.
Okay. Excellent. So, well, thank you so much for the work you do in the community. We really appreciate it. And we know June has special significance, but to your point, it's not the only month where you're focused on creating inclusion and bridging that divide for a lot of different folks who really appreciate building community in that way. So thank you. So with that, colleagues, the recommendation is whereas the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms recognizes sexual identity and sexual orientation as human rights issues, whereas the 2S LGBTQIA+ community is growing in the municipality of North Grenville, and whereas on May 19th, 2020, the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality established the month of June in perpetuity as Pride Month. Now therefore be it resolved that council directs staff to fly the Pride Progress flag on the courtesy flagpole for the month of June, and that a formal flag raising as per bylaw 0622 shall be held on Friday, June 5th, 2026 between 8:45 and 9:30, 9:45.
I'm thinking.
Okay, 8:45 and 9:45 at the Municipal Center. All right.
It is at 8:45.
It begins at 8:45.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry, I apologize if I misspoke. Yes, between 8:45 and 9:45. All right, Councillor Strahan's moved. Who would like to second? Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, then we will call the vote. All in favor? Thank you. That obviously carries. Appreciate you being here. Thank you. So next, colleagues, we're going to look to our consent agenda. I know that Council, we have, I guess, preemptively removed Oxford Village front-ending agreement, which was on the consent agenda. I know Councillor Strahan, you wanted to remove an item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to remove item H8 from the agenda, from the consent agenda for discussion, the tree inventory report.
Indeed. And then we understand that, again, as noted, we're removing 2 sets of minutes. Are there any other adjustments at this stage to the consent agenda, colleagues? If not, oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. Yep.
There's been an ask to remove H3.
Yes, and that has been addressed.
That is, okay.
Yep. So with that in mind, having dealt with that matter, I'm sorry, I meant to pull H7. So apologize, Ms. Torch, for not giving you a heads up, but it's a very quick question. So H7 also to be removed from the consent agenda. All right. So colleagues, any other adjustments before I look for a mover and a seconder? H6, Ms. Dunlop is reminding me that we had also wanted to discuss H6. Thank you, Ms. Dunlop, for that. So with that, we have a number of removals. Ms. Lindsay, from the consent agenda, did you get them all? Okay, all right. So I'll look for a mover and a seconder for the amended. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Wilson. This is to approve the amended, much shorter consent agenda. All right, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you very much. So with that, I will tackle the removed consent agenda items that were pulled for discussion. And I believe then we'll start with the H6, because we're not prepared to speak to H3 tonight. So we'll look to H6, and maybe Ms. Torch, you can give us a bit of an overview of the consideration of the waiving of fees. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. So tonight I'm presenting a fee waiver request related to the Highway 43 Car Club that runs Friday night evenings that are held here in North Grenville and on the municipal parking lot. First, I'd like to acknowledge the staff and recognize the positive community impact associated with these events. The events are well attended, support local charities and community initiatives, and provide a social recreational opportunity for residents and visitors throughout the summer season. However, staff are not recommending the approval of the fee waiver request. While the fee itself is relatively modest at $75 per Friday evening, the recurring nature of the events operating between May and September creates operational impacts and costs to the municipality that exceeded the value over the request waiver. So operational impacts associated with the event include additional janitorial servicing and cleaning requirements, increased use of washroom facility consumable supplies, additional staff oversight and operational coordination, administrative time associated with event logistics and communications, temporary relocation and coordination of NG Transit pickup and drop-off locations, additional signage and requirements and costs related to NG Transit, parking and traffic flow impacts, and additional wear and tear on municipal facilities and grounds. Staff are also mindful of maintaining consistency and fairness with respect to the waiving of fees policy. An approval of requiring operational fee waivers of this nature may establish precedent for future requests involving ongoing use of municipal resources and facilities. The current fee structure assists in partially offsetting the operational costs associated with hosting the event. Overall, while staff recognize and appreciate the value of Highway 43 Car Club brings back to the community, staff are in the opinion that maintaining the established fee structure represents the most reasonable and sustainable operational approach. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Director Torch. The report refers to an annual fee waiving annual allocation. Are we close to?
Oops, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, what's the balance left?
So we're around $4,000 currently. We have an annual budget of $10,000.
So their request would total
It's around $1,700.
1,700? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Other questions, colleagues? I mean, certainly just giving this some thought, I think we did assign a value to offset the fee waiver requests, recognizing that in many instances, organizations are using municipal facilities and generating an impact. We know that. I hear the concern, if you will, maybe not concern, that because this is a recurring event, there's a municipal impact beyond perhaps one-off events. That being said, from my perspective, given that all revenue generated is, as I understand it, donated to charity, they fundraise every week to donate proceeds to charity. Is that your understanding?
That's my understanding, but I don't, until we have a finalized report at the end of the season, I can't confirm, but yes.
So if that's my understanding, the intention of the fee waiver program was to liberate some of the monies that would be tied up in renting municipal facilities so that more of it could go back to the community. I would ask for council's consideration of granting 50% of the revenue, recognizing that the spirit in which this fee waiver program was established, and it precedes your time, so you may not have the benefit of all the previous discussion, is to ensure that when funds are raised from the community, they go back to the community. And I hear what you're saying. There is a municipal impact for sure, and we do want to recognize that. But I believe that there is merit in forgiving 50% of the costs, given that it sounds like we have a budget that could accommodate, certainly it could accommodate the full amount, but I hear what you're saying, Ms. Torch, in terms of being cognizant of impacts. But I also think the function of the fee waiver program was to really liberate the resources organizations were spending to access municipal facilities so that it would go back to the community. So every dollar that they're not spending here is monies that are being donated to local charities. So council colleagues, I just put that out for your consideration. I see Councillor Sullivan and Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just curious, we don't know, as you said, we don't know the how much they give to charity, and we certainly at this point then do not know what charities they give to, because this is County Road 43 Car Club. So it's not just Kemptville or North Grenville. My understanding is that they may be from Smith Falls to Winchester and anywhere in between. So they could choose a charity that is in perhaps Winchester, Smith Falls. So not all the money will stay in North Grenville if we in their charitable giving. So I don't know, I tend to lean towards continuing with some sort of fee, and if it's the will of the rest of council to go to 50% of what the current fee is, unless we know more how much they give to charity and where they give the money to charity.
Yes, and better information on that I think would be helpful, because if it's 50% of their charitable right, donations are given to Kemptville, then maybe that aligns with a 50% fee reduction versus 100% fee reduction. But I'll recognize Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I appreciate the report. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd be willing to move a motion to waive 50% of the fees, but I do appreciate in the report the amount of resources that the municipality is contributing on a weekly basis. So I don't think it's wrong to charge them something. And to your point, because we want to support the groups that are giving back to the community by relieving them of some of the expenses. It's not as simple as allowing them to use this theater for an evening. It does require staff, like 20 evenings or 25 evenings. So I think in principle there should be some cost to them. So, but that being said, I'd be more than happy to move to waive half the fees.
Yes, is that a seconder or a hand?
I'd be happy to second, Madam
Okay.
Mayor.
Okay. Is there further discussion on this point? We have a motion to relieve 50% of the fees. All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, that carries. Ms. Torch, I certainly think it's worthwhile to get that information on how much of their charitable givings are directed to North Grenville groups, and to emphasize that in the spirit of how we've forgiven fees, that we would highly encourage them to make sure that 50% of their contributions to local charities remain here in Kemptville. I have to say, having dealt with the group, I think they're extremely conscious of seizing every opportunity to give back. So I think they'll be fairly aware of the importance of that, but appreciate the report. Thank you so much. So next, Ms. Torch, while we have you, Parks and Rec Master Plan. I pulled this because I wanted to get the benefit of a little more information on your understanding of Monteith Brown, or I guess the proposed, to Monteith Brown Planning Consultants. So if you could just provide a little more insight into this particular group. I know they're very well respected in the province. They may have done our first plan or maybe not. So perhaps you can just give us some context. We know this is a long awaited master planning exercise for so many groups in the community, and they'll be really excited to learn more about who the partner is should this recommendation pass this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. So this report is seeking council approval to award request for proposal for the Parks and Rec Master Plan 2.0 to Monteith Brown Planning Consultants in the amount of $94,925. As council is aware, the municipality completed its first comprehensive Parks and Rec Master Plan in 2019. Since that time, North Grenville has experienced significant growth, increased demand on recreation services and facilities, evolving community expectations, and additional pressures on parks, trails, and culture infrastructure. The purpose of this updated master plan is not to recreate the 2019 plan, but rather to review what has been implemented, identify emerging needs and priorities, and provide council and staff with a long-term strategic framework to guide future decision-making over the next 10 years. The project will include a review of parks, recreation facilities, trails, active transportation amenities, cultural programming, service delivery models, and future capital infrastructure planning. The plan will also support future grant application, budgeting discussions, growth planning, and long-term asset management decisions. This request for proposal was publicly issued through MERX on March 25th, 2026, in accordance with the municipality's procurement policy. 4 compliant submissions were received. The proposals were identified, evaluated by 3-person evaluation committee using an evaluation criteria identified within the RFP, which included qualifications and experience of the firm, qualifications of project team, understanding project objectives, methodology, work plan schedule, and pricing. Following the evaluation, the final median scores resulted were as follows: Monteith Brown Planning, and just to clarify, our matrix, there was an error. We ended up going with 110 instead of out of 100% through the matrix. So the matrix resulted in something over 100. So Monteith Brown received 105.35, Dillon MGA, which is 104, Expedition Management Consulting received 102, and Community Consulting received a 91.95 score throughout the matrix. While Monteith Brown submitted the highest price proposal at the $94,925,000, the difference in pricing between the proponents was relatively minor overall. The evaluation committee determined that Monteith Brown's represented the best overall value to the municipality based on their demonstrated municipal experience, structured methodology, implementation focus, and strong understanding of North Grenville's existing assets, growth pressures, and recreational framework. Additionally, Monteith Brown did complete the municipality's 2019 Parks and Rec Master Plan, which provides value institutional knowledge and continuity for updated process. The approved budget for this project was $100,000, and the recommended award, including the municipality's non-recoverable HRT portion of the approximately 1.76, remains within the approved project budget. Should council approve the recommendation tonight, staff will proceed with finalizing the agreement and initiating the project work, including future community and stakeholder engagement opportunities throughout the process. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, it's great. I don't have a problem on the merits of awarding it to Monteith Brown, but I've never seen a price comparison that discounts the HST by 1.76. I know as a nonprofit organization, we can recoup like 87% of HST, but I'm just curious, this is the first time I've seen, HST expressed that way. So I guess our director of finance is not here to answer that question, but it doesn't have to be answered tonight, but I'd be curious to know, perhaps the CAO could shed some light on why we're expressing it that way. Because I imagine they will charge us 13% and that we will submit and recover the remainder. So I'm just curious why we're showing 1.76 rather than 13% when it comes. Possibly that would take all these quotes over, I'm speculating, over 100,000, and then we'd be looking for more money. So
Thank you for the
artful expression of.
Yeah, so thank you for the question. So I think it's important to reflect that if we do get, we do receive a portion of our HST back. So when you do include HST on these projects, they do go well over $100,000. So I think it's important. So because we are receiving those funds back, I did have a conversation with Director Wheeler, and she said it was best to incorporate these into larger projects so you can see that we are getting return in HST. But I can get you the official language from her. I'm not completely sure on how to explain it properly.
Yeah, it's nitpicking on my behalf, but anyways, I'd be curious if we're going to be using that going forward in order to bring things within budget. Okay, thanks.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Dunlop.
Through you, Your Worship, it does provide clarity in regards to total project cost. Historically, when we bring you capital programs, we say before tax. So this actually provides clarity to council and absolutely full costing in regards to what the project is anticipated for the non-recoverable component of the HST.
Thank you for that explanation, and I agree, but the cost is going to be if we go forward with this, it's going to be $94,925 plus 13%. So anyways. But
Plus 15% of which the vast majority will be recoverable.
Yes.
So not at our cost.
Yeah, at some later time.
Right.
Fine.
Well, not at some later time. Within, I think, the calendar year, those costs are recovered, right? So I think I hear what you're saying, for sure, Deputy Mayor, but I also recognize that because those costs are fully recoverable, but for the 1.76%, I understand the logic of adding the HST portion for which we bear the burden, and then the rest we recognize is a financial cost we don't incur in the long run. Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Director Torch. I'm just curious about the other applicants to receive the tender. Monteith Brown did the previous study, which was not that long ago. I guess I would have expected that they their costs or their bid would have been a little lower because they wouldn't have had to start from scratch. They would have already known a fair bit about the municipality and the infrastructure we had in place and the programs, et cetera. So I just wonder why it was actually the highest bid when the other three would have had to start from scratch and without any background info.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the question. So I can only speculate as to why their cost was higher, but based on the review, their staffing had they had higher qualifications within their resumes, which I'm assuming stipulates the higher cost. But again, I'm speculating. I didn't send the quote, so I only have limited information. So I'm basing it off of their high scale projects based in other municipalities and the work that they've done throughout the country. And based on their resume is probably the increase in cost.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly, my experience and recollection of working with Monteith Brown was they were incredibly thorough, highly engaged. I think their commitment to public engagement and really understanding the landscape of sports, rec, and culture is very broad. So I'm actually reassured to see that they made it to the top of the list because I think absolutely they did work for us 5 years ago, but you might recall it was our first ever master plan. Now we're at a different stage in the community's evolution, and while certainly I think they'll bring some memory of those conversations to the table, I think the caliber and the rigor of their work will certainly demonstrate their value. So in that respect, I think they're I think they will really produce a plan the community can get behind. And it's going to take some work because you remember 5-7 years ago where we were in conversations about Parks and Rec and where we are now is notably different. So
Absolutely. I don't dispute the quality of the report that they brought forward before. I
Yeah.
just thought it was a little, I was just curious why the other three would have had the disadvantage of not having done the previous report, and yet their bids came in lower. So, thank you.
You're always an astute observer of the fiscal realities, so thank you, Councillor O'Sullivan. And I think we'll bring this conversation to a close. I did want to ask very quickly, Ms. Torch, like a minute or less, timelines. When are they ready to start? Because we know we're ready for them to start.
Thank you for the question. As soon as I have approval, it'll be my next conversation with them to award, and we would start it as soon as possible. They're aware that we want to get this done.
I would imagine, as is typical for many consultation processes, we'll have a chance to give them our view of the world as it exists right now. So perfect. Okay, so council award request for proposal PRC 2603. Parks and Rec Culture Master Plan to Monteith Brown Planning Consultants in the amount of $94,925 plus applicable taxes, and that the Mayor and Director of Parks and Rec Culture be authorized to execute all necessary agreements. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Wilson, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, calling the vote. All in favor? Whew, that one is passed. Next, H8, tree inventory, please. Councillor Strachan. Oh, I'm sorry. You had asked for it to be pulled, but you'd like Ms. Jeanneau to provide the report first? Okay. I thought you had a particular comment to advance at this stage. Okay. Ms. Jeanneau, go ahead.
Through your worship, I don't have too much to add tonight, just to provide some context to council. So the reason this is rising the way it is a significant resolution from one of our committees. So this is actually the first time we're rising a significant resolution in this way. We're kind of testing out a new method where basically we bring a report to council to say, this is what the committee wants us to work on, and we're just looking for council's blessing. So this significant resolution in particular was passed by the Mayor's Task Force on Clean Technology, and they're looking to do a project to basically do a tree inventory on the Ferguson Forest lands, as well as some other lands in the community. A community member on the committee had started working with some partners to see what that project could look like, and then brought it to the task force to see if they could put some of their budget behind it. So at this time, we've only met with the partners once. They had created a proposal, and as staff, we just wanted to narrow down a bit what exactly the proposal was. So after, if council approves it tonight, we will be moving forward in that vein.
Thank you very much. Councillor Strachan.
Thank you, through Madam Mayor. Ms. Janot, I was at the Clean Tech Committee where the representative from Algonquin was there and gave a presentation and talked about what their Earth Lab could support and the different initiatives they have underway. Lots of great things that we're doing, or that they're doing. So I guess my question is more around the specifics of what we're asking them to do. You touched on a few broad areas, but not a completion date or the technology to be used, satellite imagery, LiDAR, boots on the ground. Those are all very different perspectives and will give different levels of granularity as well. So I'm wondering if any of those details have been thought about since the last Clean Tech meeting.
Through your worship. So the proposal I saw, we actually received, I believe, 2 different proposals from various partners. So at this time, we're really trying to bring them together. We have a meeting on Friday to take those 2 proposals and really scope it to understand exactly what the project would entail. I don't know at this time whether it would be satellite imaging or LiDAR. I have seen both discussed in the various proposals. So at this time, we're still narrowing down the specifics.
Okay, thank you. I think through you, Madam Mayor, to Ms. Janot, just to better understand, is the intention then to, if this funding is approved this evening, that the committee would make the decision as to how to move forward, and that it wouldn't be returning to council as to discuss the scope or have any input on where this moves forward? Is that the intent?
Through you, your worship. So it would basically lie with staff. We'd be working with the partners to move this project forward and finalize exactly what those details are. The proposal, the money that the task force has asked to contribute would actually go towards funding an NSERC grant, so a research grant through through Algonquin College, sorry. So really I see them as the leads on this initiative. So we're really relying on them to kind of take these 2 scoping documents we have and narrow down exactly what it would look like. In your previous question, you had asked about timeline, and apologies, I didn't answer that. You'll see the task force did request it by the end of 2026. In talking with the partners so far, it does seem like the best time to do the inventorying would be in fall of 2026. So we are hopeful we can still meet that end of 2026 guideline, pending everything goes well.
If I might, Councillor Strachan, because the mayor's task force is winding down, you could ask that staff report to the Environmental Action Committee as the plans for the actual mapping take place, or report back to council, because the task force didn't want dollars that had been sitting there that weren't deployed for a lot of different reasons to not be utilized for a worthy purpose, and the opportunity to work with Algonquin, as you know, because you were at the last meeting, presented itself. So, but at this point, it won't be the task force that really is heavily engaged. I know Ms. Janot, thankfully, has had the opportunity to make those connections and have some of those conversations.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And that's where I was leading, to go down that path, because I know that there hasn't been input from the Environmental Action Advisory Committee on this way forward. It has sort of just been receiving tidbits of information as to where things were going. So I think that they would be keen to be part of the conversation, if at all possible. And yes, without the task force to report to, it would probably be a good place to land as well. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Councillor Wilson, I'm sorry, it's me. I was focused on what the recommendation said, so didn't look at the hands right away. So I'll recognize Councillor Wilson, then Councillor Sullivan and Deputy Mayor. Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Peckford. I think that we will be going back to the task force at the next meeting. We were allocated a budget of $17,000 over the duration of the task force. We have not spent that and thought we were going to spend more. So we only allocated the $9,500 towards this project. And I do understand that there is a surplus, so we would be able to utilize the extra $500 to bring it up to the $10,000 that we had requested originally. So that's something moving forward that we're going to come back to ask.
Thank you for reminding me. Yes, there was an additional 500 in play that we didn't know if it was in fact available, but if it's part of that surplus, absolutely. I think we would support the deployment of those resources. Councillor Sullivan and then Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Ms. Chanot. I understood that part of the natural asset management plan that there's to be a tree inventory done as a asset management exercise. And if I recall correctly, it was going to be all trees in public parks and public spaces that are the property of the municipality. Is that separate from this? And is there funding for this, for the asset management of trees, natural asset management of trees as well as for this?
Through your worship, they're basically one and the same. So we're working closely with our asset manager, Roger Doherty. He was thrilled to see this project come up from the committee. It is work he's been eager to do, but he hasn't had the resources to do it as a one-person team. So he's very excited about it. He had begun some very minor work looking at trees in parks, so mainly focusing on trees that we manage and we own and maintain as a municipality. In terms of funding for this project, we have reached out to FCM. While they don't have funding that available right now for this project, they do have expected calls for applications for planting trees. So once we've done this inventory, which is kind of a prerequisite for applying for their tree planting programs. They're very eager for us to start applying for those, and they think that the timelines would lend themselves well to each other. If we're able to get this inventory done by the end of the year, they expect their next tree planting program to open up in next spring.
If I may, so this project is only trees in the Ferguson Forest, or is it going to be trees in the parks and public trees that belong to the municipality as well?
Through your worship. So right now our start is with the Ferguson Forest, but the goal is to have an inventory for all trees that are within municipal lands and jurisdiction.
By the end of 2026?
Through your worship, I don't think we'd be able to complete all of that by the end of 2026. We'll see how far we get with the initial assessment with the Ferguson Forest.
Certainly, I think the opportunity for a first go at this enables the municipality to leverage other resources to, I think the hope is to continue the mapping exercise well beyond Ferguson, looking at other public lands, also campus as an example, and road allowances, Ms. Dunlop is suggesting. So I think this gets the ball rolling beautifully, and I would imagine, as you know, as we start down this path, hopefully we can continue to the point of completion. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Like my council colleague, I had a question about the scope, and so much of that question has been answered. But I guess I'd like to take the opportunity to advocate for some of our older trees or bigger trees, like in Maplewood Park and the campus. That's true natural heritage there. So I understand that this is just a pilot, and hopefully we can roll out a more comprehensive inventory of the trees. But once again, I'd like to advocate for Maplewood Park and the campus in terms of identifying trees. And I'll take this opportunity to thank Director Torch for quick work in Maplewood Park. I know there's some remediation work going on, so the Oxford Mills Community Association is very grateful because that was something came up recently, and Director Torch acted very quickly on it. Thanks.
Okay, wonderful. If there's nothing else, colleagues, we will look to have a motion to both receive the report and provide direction to staff, Ms. Janot, in terms of the expenditure of those resources from the Mayor's Task Force towards the natural asset mapping as Ms. Janot has described. Do I have a mover and a seconder in regards to this piece, please? Deputy Mayor, yes. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wilson, thank you. And I think the intention of the motion is as stated. Councillor Strachian.
Madam Mayor, do we wish to include
Yes.
the reporting back to the EAAC as well in this motion?
Yes, indeed.
As a friendly amendment?
Yes. So the direction to staff is that we deploy the resources as proposed by the mayor's task force on clean tech to support the partnership with the Algonquin College Environmental Natural Asset Mapping Initiative, and that we request that staff report to the Environmental Action Committee with updates as things progress. I think I'm hearing from Councillor O'Sullivan that any emphasis on public parks, and Deputy Mayor said the same, certainly would be appreciated because they are coveted and cherished assets, and maybe they're a little simpler than a Ferguson Forest, one would hope. So, Ms. Jeannot, I look forward to seeing what the partnership with Algonquin College reveals in that respect. All right. So I think the motion with all friendly amendments has been moved, and we have a mover and a seconder. So if there are no other comments, colleagues, any other comments, we'll call the question. All in favor? Excellent. Thank you. That does carry. Okay, wonderful. So with that, I believe we've completed our consent agenda. Now we'll look to the minutes of the previous meeting. That is the regular minutes of May 5th, 2026, and the special minutes of the May 11th and May 11th meetings be adopted as presented. And I'll look to a council colleague to move and second, please. Councillor Strakian and Councillor O'Sullivan, thank you. And I will, with that, call the question. All in favor? Those minutes carry. Thank you. No closed sessions this evening, colleagues. And with that, I have a need for a 5-minute pause so that I can confer with the CAO. So colleagues, if I could just ask for a 5-minute pause. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sullivan, I'm just looking for a 5-minute break. Thank you. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Okay, colleagues, when you're ready, we are going to invite, so we're shifting the agenda back to the initial order, and we'll start with M1, which is our dome facility. So welcome Ms. Torch to provide a project update. Thank you.
Sorry about that. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you to our Dome supporters and champions that are in the building today, first and foremost, and then I'm going to get right into our report. So I'm going to forewarn, this is a long report. There's a lot of information I want to provide to the community. So there are a few pictures that I wouldn't mind getting posted when I get there, just so I can fully explain what's going on. So bear with me as I get through this, but I think it'll provide a lot of information and I'm excited to present it. So the purpose of this report is to provide council and the community with an update on the work completed to date, the proposed facility concept currently being explored, and to seek council support for the continued advancement of funding readiness activities associated with the Dome project. It is important to clarify at the outset that the staff are not seeking construction approval, tender authorization, or budget approval for facility construction at this time. The report is focused on continuing project planning, feasibility review, technical analysis, and ensuring the municipality is appropriately positioned should future provincial and federal infrastructure funding opportunities become available. Over the past several years, North Grenville has experienced continued residential growth, increased recreation participation, and growing pressure on existing recreation infrastructure. At the same time, recreation infrastructure investments have not expanded at the same pace as community demand and involving recreational needs. Staff continue to hear from user groups, sports organizations, residents, and community stakeholders regarding the need for additional year-round indoor recreation space within North Grenville. Currently, the municipality has limited indoor turf or field house infrastructure, which has resulted in residents and organizations traveling to surrounding municipalities for training, programming, walking opportunities, tournaments, and recreational activities. This project also aligns with Parks and Recreational Master Plan. The master plan identified increasing demand for indoor recreational space, pressure on existing facilities, and specifically referenced community interest in a multi-sports dome facility, indoor walking opportunities, and expanded multi-use recreational space. Since the inception of this project, staff have undertaken extensive stakeholder engagement and preliminary technical review work. This has included discussion with local sports organizations, recreational groups, community partners, accessibility considerations, and individuals with experience in sports facility development and operations. Input received have directly influenced proposed facility layout, recreational programming opportunities, walking and wellness considerations, clubhouse requirements, which sometimes I will refer to as an auxiliary building, parking concepts, and broader recreational campus planning. Municipal site locations were reviewed as part of this process, including lands associated with Ferguson Forest Center. Following preliminary review, the Kemptville campus lands identified as the preferred location due to increased long-term recreational opportunities, improved site flexibility, accessibility, circulation, parking opportunities, and future recreational campus potential. The preferred concept currently being explored is identified as option 2. The concept there we go. Thank you. The concept includes a full FIFA-sized regulation soccer field with flexible multi-sport configurations capable of supporting soccer, pickleball, basketball, volleyball, badminton, baseball training, lacrosse, walking opportunities, fitness programming, and general recreational use. The concept also includes a supportive clubhouse facility with change rooms, washrooms, multi-purpose community space, viewing areas, storage, and operational support amenities. The proposed multi-use dome model is intended to maximize year-round flexibility, multi-sport functionality, and community access while supporting a broad range of recreational programming opportunities within a single facility footprint. To support project feasibility and funding readiness, several technical and planning exercises have already been completed or initiating, including concept planning, site review and analysis, topographic survey work, parking and circulation review, preliminary service considerations, operational review, and preliminary cost estimating. In addition, geotechnical field investigations have been completed with final reporting currently pending. The work completed to date has helped position the municipality to continue advancing the project in a reasonable and strategic manner while improving future funding readiness opportunities. The project has the potential to provide a significant long-term community and economic benefits, including expanded recreational opportunities, improving wellness and physical activity access, support to local or sports organizations, tournament attractions opportunities, and increased economic activity within the community. At this stage, staff are seeking council to support the continued advancement of this project to support future provincial and federal funding applications opportunities as they become. So as you see, option 2 is up. Council will see on the screen that the current preferred concept identified as option 2. This concept is intended to function as a flexible year-round multi-sport recreational facility capable of supporting a wide range of recreation and community uses. The primary field is currently designed as a full-size FIFA regulation indoor soccer field. However, the space has intentionally has been designed to support flexible multi-use programming. The current concept allows for soccer programming, pickleball, basketball, volleyball, badminton, baseball training, lacrosse, walking, jogging opportunities, and general recreation and wellness programming. One of the primary goals of this concept is maximizing year-round flexibility and community access within a single facility footprint. Council will also note the perimeter circulation round will help support walking opportunities, spectator movement, and operational flexibility within the facility. At this stage, the layout remains conceptual and will continue to evolve through future technical review, stakeholder engagement, and detailed design work. If we can move to the clubhouse concept, please. Thank you. Council will also see the preliminary clubhouse concept associated with the proposed dome facility. The clubhouse component is intended to support both day-to-day recreation programming and larger tournament or event operations. The concept currently includes team change rooms, universal and family washrooms, public washrooms, referee and support facilities, multi-purpose community rooms, reception and administrative space, concession opportunities, storage and operational areas, first aid and wellness space, and viewing and gathering areas. One of the pieces that are currently not on this site plan, and again, we haven't included after a meeting with the Minister of Sport, something that we're considering is adding a space for like a physiotherapy office or some sort of medical needs space, so that it can be a fully functioning space. So that is something that is currently not within that design, but is something that is under recommendation. So one of the goals of the clubhouse concept is ensuring that the facility can support broader community use beyond sports programming alone. The clubhouse is also intended to improve overall functionality, user experience, accessibility, and long-term operational flexibility for the site. Like the dome concept itself, the clubhouse designs remain preliminary and would continue to evolve through future design and technical review phases. Now, if we can go to the zone of recreation PDF, please. Thank you. Council will also see the broader zone of recreation concept associated with the site. This concept looks beyond just the dome facility itself and explores how overall facility could function as an integral recreation campus over the long term. The current concept illustrates the proposed dome location, parking areas, vehicle circulation, pedestrian connectivity, active transportation, trails connection, landscaping opportunities, outdoor recreation integration, and future recreation expansion opportunities. The purpose of the broadening planning exercise is to ensure site remains flexible and capable of supporting long-term recreation growth within North Grenville. This approach also helps ensure future recreation investments are coordinated, connected, and planned strategically rather than developed independently over time. At this stage, these concepts again remain preliminary and are intended to support ongoing feasibility review, long-term planning discussions, and future funding readiness opportunities. That's the end of my report, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Torch. You've covered a lot of ground relatively quickly. Just like we hope that users of the dome will. They'll be taking up all kinds of space and moving quickly, whether they're walking, running, playing, competing, training, or what have you. So colleagues, any questions at this stage of the game? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Director Torch. First of all, I appreciate all the effort that we've done so far to make this ready and waiting for largesse from upper levels of government. But to the best of my knowledge, they haven't announced a new envelope. So your report mentions a Class C estimate, which is a ballpark, but better than a Class D estimate, thanks to all the work that we've done so far. Do you know what that estimate is?
So it's still under review, but right now it's 17 million with a high level of contingency built in.
So my understanding is that every class has a plus or minus. So 17 million plus or minus.
It depends on, right now, I believe it's a 20% contingency based on the size of the project.
Okay. And do we anticipate getting all those funds from a single source, or is this a many different, are we stacking? Are we looking at stacking grants?
Again, thank you for the question through Madam Mayor. That will be determined based on the eligibility within each grant platform through the provincial and federal funding.
And if I might, you spoke to contingencies. The 17 million quota includes the contingency.
Correct.
So the plus of the contingency. So it could come in 20% less than 17, but not more than 17. The contingency has been built in to set a maximum expenditures, I understand it, of 17, recognizing that I think the contingency currently is over $3 million.
Correct.
Right. Now, I just wanted to ask before recognizing others, Ms. Torch, the Ontario government has announced a funding envelope, but they have yet to open up the portal. But we can emphasize that we did have a meeting with the Minister of Sports, Rec and Culture relatively recently, where CEO Dunlop, myself, and you were there, and certainly wanted to ensure that Minister Lumsden understood the value proposition of this project and how it had been advanced in terms of designs and conceptual and other logistical considerations since the first funding request was made, and made in really a very short period of time. So clearly the municipality's been in a position to pursue and develop detailed designs in ways that align with the expectations of the provincial funder. So I know while the portal hasn't opened, the Ontario government through the April budget did announce funding for province-wide sports and recreation facilities, and the expectation is the grant applications will be received or open for submission within the next 6 to 8 weeks, is our understanding. All right, other questions? No? Yes, Councillor Wilson. Fire away.
Okay. Thank you, through Mayor Peckford, to Tana, Director Torch. Seeing that we just passed the RFP for the recreational master plan, we want to, before we go on this, I know we can still go out and get money and do whatever we want, but would we be kind of, would it be a good idea to wait until we have that master plan, that recreational master plan, to see how feasible this is? But I mean, I like what we're doing right now, and I don't want to jeopardize anything. I think it's great, but I'm just putting it out there because I'm sure we're going to be asked that.
Thank you for the question through you, Madam Mayor. So when through the PRC master plan, there's a few sections, and I think off the top of my head, it's like page 16, 17, and I believe I think page 12, 13. When they were doing stakeholder engagement with the community, they had one of the community, I'm going to say outcries, was actually this Parks and Rec master plan, which you can find within those documents. And again, there was a conversation about sports fields and user groups going outside of the community. We want to pull them back in. I think with the amount of work we have done to get ready for this project and the funding that is becoming available, I believe we should pursue the funding. If we don't, we could have a missed opportunity because we don't know that the government will release future funds.
Supplemental, thank you. Thank you for all the work that's been done. I totally agree. Now I forget my thought. Did it again. With I'll get back to it. I'll ask you another time. It's not really important. It's just more about making the public aware. Oh, I know what it was. So If anybody wants, if the public would like to know what the current Parks and Rec master plan is, please go on the website, please find it and read through it, and you will find what Director Tarch is talking about. Sorry about that. Thanks.
Oh, good. It's getting late. Certainly, I think, and just to restate, Ms. Torch, what I heard you say and what Councillor Wilson has reinforced is back in 2019-20, when we did our first master plan, it became obvious even back then that there were sports and recreation groups highlighting an absence of indoor recreational spaces. And I know Ms. Martin, through the community consultation with the official plan process, also the consulting team highlighted some of those severe gaps in the community. It is unusual for a community of this size and growth to have no supplementary indoor facilities outside of school gyms. Usually there's a why. Usually there's some other indoor recreational amenity that emerges over time. And for whatever reason, it hasn't come to pass. I think when we get to the arts and culture section of our agenda, we'll hear a similar theme when it comes to how to proactively seek to fill gaps in the community. But certainly I think on the indoor recreational front, for a very long time, there's been a recognition that there is a profound lack of available space in the community. Councillor Stracan.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you very much, Director Torch. You did answer my question that I had regarding land and land choices and where we're at in that the thought process. But I do have two sort of unrelated follow-up questions that you may not be able to answer, but I'll put them out here anyway. One is related to the Champions Breakfast and so on, and the large number of groups that have come forward to say that they're supportive of this and have weighed in with their thoughts on what they would like to see and so on. Do we have a sense of how many residents they represent?
Thank you for your question. Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm not sure. However, I could probably pull that information through some of my colleagues' knowledge within the community. I personally, I'm not sure.
Okay, and just I'm raising this to you again through Madam Mayor is because I think that there's a sense of a large number of groups, but what does that actually mean in real terms for representing the residents that participate in their various organizations?
Further to that, again, through you, Madam Mayor, even just looking at the soccer club alone, they represent 2,000 within the community. So just based on that alone, I don't know the numbers for everybody in the community, but there is a lot of user groups within our community that have large numbers that support this. So again, I can pull these numbers for you and provide that to the
Fantastic. And if I may, another related question is you've engaged lots of different groups, lots of folks in the room talking about sports and some representing youth. Have you spoken to youth directly about what they would like to see in a clubhouse? Because in my mind, I look at this space, as you have mentioned, beyond sports programming, what youth may want to see in this kind of facility to encourage them to use the space as they would see as fitting for what they're looking for. Because it's not only the star basketball players that we want to show up there on their on team nights or with their other friends, but it's also those who just are looking for a space to come and hang out and maybe throw the ball around or whatever, you know, in a less formal way. So has there been consultation with youth groups?
Thank you for the question through you, Madam Mayor. There has been slight conversations with youth groups. However, we haven't reached out to youth individually to monitor or survey them. That is something that we could potentially do fairly quickly, just to do based on what we've heard from our community champions. We could do a poll through their assistants to their membership to see and just itemize what they're looking for to come up with a poll. I think that might be the easiest way. And then if anyone's interested, we could have an in-person meeting to discuss with them openly.
Thank you. And I guess I would also encourage you to reach out to the high schools. They have some fantastic, we'll just call them gym teachers for a way of oversimplifying, but they have direct connections to youth within the schools as well. And you might get some different information from them than they would through their clubs as well, focusing on specific sports or just broader wants beyond the sports. Thank you very much.
Excellent. I saw another hand. Oh, Councillor Wilson and then, okay, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Peckford, to Director Torch, and I'm sure this is a broad question for everyone. We have our champions group, and in the future or soon, coming soon, would we be considering putting a sponsorship package out to entice some large corporate sponsorship for something like this? I know you are, but I want to hear it.
Okay. Thank you for the question through you, Madam Mayor. While it's too early to create a sponsorship package at this point until we actually have secured funding. So once we've had secured funding and we're on our way to having that first, boots on the ground, shovel ready project, these programs can be created fairly quickly and can be in line with the progress of the build. So yes, we will be doing it, just not yet.
All right, Councillor Barkley. Deputy Mayor Barkley, apologies. Same.
Just don't
same.
call me late for dinner. That's
Okay.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, to Director Torch. Just along the same lines as Councillor Strachan's questions about consultation, can you outline the conversation or the dialogue you've had with the campus regarding the site?
Thank you for the question. I have not had the opportunity to sit down with the campus recently about the discussion, but it is something that we still need to continue to have those dialogues and conversations. However, I have not had one recently.
I believe much of the negotiations around the site preceded your arrival.
Correct.
So I think Ms. Dunlop and I can speak
Okay, I
to
appreciate that.
how they've been engaged from the get-go.
Okay.
So Ms. Dunlop, maybe we'll start with you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, the conversations before this even became a large idea for the municipality. The campus were involved in regards to site selection. Once the French board was moving to a different home, and also in conjunction with a former chair of the campus board, and the former ED, we looked at various locations within the campus itself. How would it fit best within campus operations in keeping with their master plan, but also how would it be best serving not only North Grenville, but also regional. So where are the transportation routes, where are pedestrian routes, et cetera. So we engaged the campus as part of the site selection, and they actually came down to 2 specific sites, and this is the preferred alternative.
So just to say the campus has been with us since the beginning, and certainly our most recent Dome Champions Breakfast, and recognize we have a couple of Dome champions here. The ED of the Kemptville campus was present and is genuinely very excited about the synergies, because the campus is such a wonderful location for a lot of different activities. It's where a football club is. There's a lot of other recreational and general use of trails and buildings and what have you. So I think there is very strong support for the fact that this dome will sort of help to introduce people who may not be that familiar with the campus to all of what the campus has to offer. So we're certainly, we were very delighted in the early stages, Ms. Torch, which again preceded you by several months, to work with them on a location that they could feel good about. So now, I think with that, Deputy Mayor, does that complete your questions? Councillor Sullivan, did you have anything to add right now? Okay. Okay. So then I would only say there is a very extensive list of Q&As on our North Grenville website /Dome. As we were speaking of the Champions program, I was looking at the number of champions who are featured on our website, as well as the over 232 letters now that have been submitted on behalf of both organizations and individual, though I would say it's largely organizational, but some individual. So if there are people watching or listening that wish to be a champion, that is an open call. And working through Tammy Hurlbert as part of the Parks and Rec team, you can flag if you'd like to be a champion. The nice thing about the Champions program is it's brought together business leaders and community leaders, and certainly those engaged in sports, rec, and culture, but not only. So it's a broad array of folks in the community that see merits in going down this path. But for the purposes of this evening, colleagues, you'll see that the recommendation is that council receive report PRC 2026-012, that council endorse the continued advancement of the North Grenville Rec Sports Dome Facility Project, including ongoing detailed design, technical review, and funding readiness. That council supports staff in pursuing and submitting provincial and federal funding applications related to the dome, and that the mayor or director of Parks, Rec, and Culture be authorized to execute any documents required for funding application submissions related to the project. So I'll look for a mover and a seconder in regards to that. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any last questions or comments? Not seeing any. I will call the question. All in favor? All right. That passes. Thank you very much, Ms. Torch, for your update. Okay, so with that, I'm going to move to our next item, and that is in regards to, I apologize, I've just lost track of the agenda. Here it is. Okay, so I believe that we have two recommendations to consider in regards to permanent spaces for heritage and arts activities. And Ms. Dunlop, are you delivering the staff insight into these particular reports? Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. The next two reports are recommendations rising from the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Advisory Committee for both an immediate need and a longer term assessment. So the first one is in regards to a discussion that was held at the May 19th, 2026 committee. And the members are asking council to support the development of a strategic plan to address the needs of arts and culture spaces. Now, that's not just our traditional, what we would see as the theater that we have at this building, but also the idea of heritage, as well as historical community assets, if I can use that. At this point in time, there is no specific allotment within the municipal budget to provide for such a strategic plan, but we would look to council for direction in regards to how they would like us to move it forward. But the recommendation is rising from the committee.
Thank you for that context. And I know we have a couple of sitting members of council on that committee. So if either of you wishes to speak in regards to the recommendation, feel free to do so. Yes, Deputy Mayor, and then Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thank you, CAO Dunlop. Yes, as recently as May 19th, the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Advisory Committee got together and discussed this along with members from the arts, culture, and heritage community. I would just start the conversation, if there's going to be much of it, by saying members of the theater community are here in the audience, and I'm sure they're drooling over the $17 million that we're considering to expand our recreational spaces, and what they're here to advocate for. And on behalf of the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Advisory Committee, I'm advocating for us to address the lack of space for such things as storage, a maker space, costume storage, prop storage, and in terms of the heritage component of that committee, we also saw representation from the North Grenville Historical Society, and they, since I've been in North Grenville, they've been looking for an archive or a museum. So the first motion you brought forward was to look at immediate concerns, and I think the most immediate, that from my perspective, are working space for fragile inheritance to curate and look at their heritage specimen collection. That's rather, they're in a crisis right now with no space, and also the North Grenville Community Theatre and the Kemptville Youth Musical Theatre Company. So this is asking staff to take a look at what's available in the short term to address those two immediate concerns for space. And I think the subsequent one is probably more easily managed in that it should become a budget item for 2027. But right now we're scrambling for resources to address those two major concerns in my mind: the fragile inheritance natural specimen collection and storage space for props and costumes. Kemptville Youth Musical Theatre Company and the North Grenville Community Theater. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Any other comments, Councillor Wilson? Anything you wish to add? Okay. But just to be clear, so we have the consideration of the support of the development of a strategic plan to identify and address the arts and cultural permanent space needs, as well as a subsequent recommendation around immediate options, Deputy Mayor. So if we deal with these in order, I think for the purposes of M2, we're looking to see if council will support the recommendation that the municipality pursue the development of a strategic plan. So let's start there and then go to the, okay. So I'll look to a mover and a seconder in order to advance the recommendation if it's the will of council. So Deputy Mayor, do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Strachan. Thank you. So motions on the table. I would simply, based upon your comments, Deputy Mayor, turn to Ms. Dunlop or Ms. Torch to inquire about the feasibility of developing a strategic plan. Are there budgetary implications? Would you, Ms. Dunlop, working with Ms. Torch, bring a report back to council so that that particular strategic plan becomes an organizational priority? How would the strategic plan be developed? As I guess the first question, and then I'll go to Deputy Mayor. Do you want to ask your second?
My suggestion in terms of dealing with the strategic plan would be to ensure that it's included in the 2027 budget, and as well as making it a priority for our review of the Parks, Rec and Culture master plan. So I didn't make this comment when that was presented on the agenda, but I would just advocate for renewed emphasis on arts, culture, and heritage space as we go through the master plan. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll look to Ms. Dunlop for comment, and then we'll go to Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate the Deputy Mayor's comment, and that was actually going to be my suggestion, that we plan for the 2027 budget to have a strategic plan embedded within the master plan. Due to our current lack of resources, we don't have the ability, both financially or personal resources, to make this happen, nor do we have additional space within the municipal inventory ourselves. So I look to the 2027 budget for a long-term strategic plan for these needs.
Councillor Wilson?
Through Mayor Peckford, just for public knowledge, I would like to add in there that we also are embarking on an arts council that will need space also, possibly to facilitate having an arts council with public space for, as Deputy Mayor Barclay said, maker space, storage space. We need an overall arts hub. Historical Society will be looking for space for their archives. They'd like to be in one space altogether with their hub and their artifacts. And the Fragile Inheritance, I'm not as astute and as in the know for this, but apparently Deputy Mayor Barclay is, so he can advocate for that.
Indeed. And again, at this point, we're just speaking to recommendation number 1, which is the strategic plan, but absolutely to your point, how Fragile Inheritance is also accommodated. It can certainly be part of that strategic plan if that is the will of the community. Councillor Strachan.
Thank you, through Madam Mayor. And I agree with the points that have been raised so far. I think we need to ensure that we're not lumping everything together, because I think there are real immediate needs for some groups versus long-term planning needs for others. So the strategic plan is absolutely, I think, necessary, and being able to embed that within the PRC master plan makes sense. It is 2027. I think 2026 needs should be looked at separately. And I believe the next item on the agenda will be talking to some of the immediate needs, but just to separate those out because we've sort of lumped them all together in this conversation. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I'd like to call the question then on the first recommendation. I think there's a path, which is the next budget cycle, as well as Ms. Torch, I think you're hearing, and I presume Monteith Brown is very well equipped to have the conversation not just about Parks Rec, but also culture. And there will be stakeholder opportunities, public engagement opportunities to hear directly from the arts and culture community in regards to those needs, correct? Okay. So with that established, I believe that we're ready to call the question to formalize the desire among council to provide direction to staff to ensure that the strategic plan is certainly part of the budget, among other things. Calling the vote, all in favor? Okay, that carries. So let's move to the next one. And the recommendation, of course, is that Arts, Culture, and Heritage Advisory Committee are recommending to council to direct staff to explore and report back on immediate options to accommodate local theater groups and their assets, including secure and accessible space for storage, dressing rooms, costume changes, and related production needs. I don't know if either member of the committee wants to kick this one off. Other than what's been said, I certainly recognize there have been efforts by Ms. Torch and Ms. Dunlop to identify immediate options. I don't know if anything has changed in regards to the evaluation of what's available, other than the ongoing use of the storage pods. Ms. Torch, is there anything else you want to add at this stage?
Thank you for the question, but no, I don't have anything further.
So with that in mind, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Wilson, having had the benefit of being part of the conversation, I know that by virtue of the fact that the Township Hall was storage space with those renovations, we moved to pods. Is there an appetite on the part of council to continue supporting some of the financial costs incurred for the pods, or are we looking for another option? I'm hearing that there may not be another option at the present time, and the pods have represented the best attempt at accommodating some of these storage needs. So again, I look to members of the committee to highlight for us what is most helpful at this time. Councillor Wilson?
Thank you. With being at the meeting, the immediate need for them is the storage, of course, the pods. The other immediate need is they are requiring a space for when they're doing their rehearsals and doing their costume try-ons. They need the space to be able to do that. And I think that's washrooms, facilities, change room facilities, et cetera, so that they can do their costumes. That was my impression.
Deputy Mayor, go ahead. And then Councillor Sullivan?
Yeah, I recognize that in the short term, there's nothing in the 2026 budget to accommodate any expense to address these needs, but I'm wondering if there's other sources of funding within the municipal operations to extend the rental of those pods and maybe rent some space, short-term space, to facilitate the cataloging of this natural heritage collection that Fragile Inheritance has. In both cases, it's been moved around as we've needed storage space in order to upgrade and rehabilitate buildings, Maplewood Hall and Bell Hall, in our two cases in point. But I'm wondering if we couldn't draw down from the Heritage Fund to help Fred and Melita with Fragile Inheritance, and I wondered if there's some other source. This question would go to the CAO, obviously. If there's any other sources that we could, in the short term, in short term, I mean by the time the Parks Rec and Culture Master Plan is completed and or we've passed the 2027 budget. So we've got about 10 months. So my question to the CAO is, are there other pools of money that we might access to help those two organizations, or three, actually, not to forget the North Grenville Community Theatre?
We'll go to the CEO and then Councillor Sullivan. Is that okay, Councillor Sullivan? Okay.
Through you, Your Worship, we do have in the 2026, we do have a heritage reserve that we're putting away, valued at $37,500, which may assist with a component. There are currently about there's 4 groups that are looking for immediate assistance. Unfortunately, there's no municipally owned assets that we have at our readiness that would serve those needs. So from myself, I would be looking for direction from council on what specifically council would be looking to put into these groups, the level of effort that and cooperation between the groups and the municipality. So as I said, there's 37.5 in the heritage. Are there other sources? We would have to go back and look at the 2026 budget, but there's no reserve draws, not the opposite. So there's no funds going into reserves that I'm aware of that are dedicated to this type of a function, but we can always look at the year-to-dates and see where we are on other line items.
Just to follow up, I think the Heritage Reserve, because of the bylaw and the terms of reference about how that money is used, it would only apply to fragile inheritance in that it's natural history that we're talking about. As far as continuing to subsidize the pods for the Kemptville Youth Music Theatre Company, I've been looking for some funds for at least a year until some, hopefully, we're still looking for funds to complete the rehabilitation of Maplewood Hall, but that was the former temporary storage space, and they've gone from temporary storage space to temporary storage space. So whatever solution we come up with, or wherever we find the money, it should give them at least a year's grace. Thanks.
Okay, I've got Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Strahan. So go ahead, Councillor Sullivan.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, I guess it would be to, who brought this recommendation forward?
The
Arts Culture. Okay. So who am I directing it to? You? So the recommendation has accessible space for storage, which I get, but dressing rooms, costume changes, and related production needs. Does that mean renovating here? I mean, the dressing rooms, it's not clear to me what exactly does this mean? And is it an extensive renovation? It's been a long time since I had a backstage tour here.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. In discussions with Director Torch, we have very limited footprint here. We have maxed out our footprint for not only our internal uses, but our external group uses as well. I think there's some modifications that may be able behind the stage that may minorly assist with some of the needs of these groups, but I think it's a broader footprint. It's outside the scopes of these walls and making sure that the needs of the groups are met. But it's a collaborative approach. We need to know specifically what their needs are, both the theater groups as well as the heritage groups, so we can go out collaboratively and look at solutions. I know that the pods have a new home, but although they're not ideal, they're not temperature regulated in any way, shape, or form. They do not have any bathrooms attached, although they are near this building at least. That's the saving grace. They do cost the municipality currently at about $1,000 a month for 5 pods. So just add that to the equation for council's consideration. If the intent is that we provide them until the end of the year, either at 100% or at a reduced rate or at whatever, I would be looking for council's direction. Can we find alternative funds for that value until the end of the year? Probably. And we can report back to council in the short term with an absolute.
So if I may, I'm just wondering then, dressing rooms and costume changes really don't apply in what this immediate need is, because you're not running out to that pod for costume changes and using it as a dressing room in the winter. No. So maybe those 2 things would be removed from this particular recommendation then?
I think what we're looking, or what I believe a staff would appreciate is council direction on things that we think are viable and achievable. So obviously some of these things, like access to dressing room and costume changes, I presume, are not easily obtainable, if I'm not mistaken. But certainly financial support to offset some of the costs of ongoing pod usage, which we all recognize is less than ideal by a long shot, is still something that may be valuable to the groups, given my understanding of the financial expense attached to even a fairly inadequate storage solution. What I would like to see is clearly that examination of access to some sort of facility when it comes to costume changes and related production needs. It seems to me needs a further report by staff, further input from the groups in the audience. So I don't know if we can land that tonight, but we may be able to provide direction on some short-term or short to midterm financial assistance. But I will defer to Councillors Strakian and Wilson. Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I guess directing to the CAO, I think exploring potential other sources for funding should the Heritage Reserve not be appropriate to be spent on the community theatre groups, then I think we should try and find a way to help alleviate most, if not all, of the cost of those pods. I would hesitate to say that it's this calendar year, 1 year, just because of production timing and so on, that we make sure that there's adequate coverage for that so that we're not interrupting midway through a season that would interrupt their access to the costumes and so on. I think the pods, the other concern that I have, and I don't know if this has been raised from the groups that are using it currently, is we're talking about costumes and the like. Is there likely to be damage by those being held there because of humidity and so on? I know they're not temperature controlled. Temperature is one thing, but if it gets nice and hot in there in the summer, which does here, it is already very hot here. Today was an example of that. We wouldn't want to leave those costumes in a place where they could be damaged in the long run and then become completely useless for future use as well. So I think those should all be considered. Temporary access to facilities that would allow for costumes to be tried on and so on, leading into productions, I think is the main concern. The facilities back here, whether or not they're adequate is another concern, but they do allow for the costume changes during productions. I think we're also talking about the time in between, right? So being able to access the costumes as well as be in a place where the various participants can try them on as well. So we do have a facility here that I think could help accommodate that in the short-term needs. And obviously this paragraph speaks to a longer term need for all of those requirements. So I'm fully in favor of finding funding. And I don't know if we can land on a number tonight as to what we'd be willing to support without knowing where the funds are available. But I would be supportive of maximizing the amount that we can support them.
Great. Councillor Sullivan, Wilson, apologies. Okay. So Council, with all of this in mind, recognizing that we could talk around this issue for a long time, but I'm hearing everybody express a strong interest in directing staff to facilitate financial support to offset the usage of the pods. And I'm hearing Councillor Strakian, among others, saying we have facilities here that could ensure that during times when you're trying on costumes and getting actors and actresses, performers ready for a particular performance, there is the opportunity to use this space in short bursts, I presume, for those particular times. Should there be someone from the groups present wishing to speak, you'll have to come to the mic. We invite you to do that before council provides any sort of direction on this issue. And just turn on the mic. You can just press the button. And if you could just introduce yourself quickly, and then we'll go from there. Thanks. Deputy Mayor.
Hi, Barbara LaSalle from Campbell Youth Musical Theatre Company. I just want to clarify a few things. I mean, things like costume changes and things like that, I think we can work around. I think the immediate problem for us is that we can't even get to our costumes. We can go to the pods. we can open them up, but I cannot get physically there. It's so packed full of costumes that I cannot physically get in to get costume out. I can't. I have to take everything out to be able to get them. And when you're dealing with weather, so you don't know, you're trying to set up something, to go get costumes, but you don't know what the weather's, it's going to be raining or snowing, or, the wind's going to be too high, or it's going to be 30 degrees out. It's just almost impossible to work under those circumstances. I can work around costume changes. If I can get to my costumes, I can pull them out, even though I'm 65 and I don't want to do this every time. It's getting harder and harder. But just to be able to get to them, I feel like I've lost my baby. I can't even get to I'm doing a production in September, and I can't even get to these beautiful costumes. So we're investing in more costumes because we've got to put a show on. And I'm worried, like you said, I'm worried about all the effort that's gone into 25 years of costume building and the resources that we have to try and keep those costs down so people can come and enjoy the theater. So I just wanted to say that I don't want you guys to get held up on that there's a bathroom or that there's a, costume, a place to, I know that we can come here and try on costumes and do all of that, but it's that immediate attention to where the costumes are right now that I wanted to say. Anyways.
And since you're here, I guess the question is, in the
Sure.
absence of any other option, is the pods,
The pods are better than out
right?
in the parking lot or in my garage.
And
to
would
be
an
honest with you.
extra pod give you some breathing room?
It would help, but it
Okay.
would add to the cost.
Sure.
And I think the cost of the pods, I'm not sure, like we have 3 pods and the North Grenville Community Theater have 2.
Mhm.
And the North Grenville Concert Choir is also in there too. We've storing their costumes for them too. So
But an
So
extra pod
it
could
would
give
help a lot.
everyone,
It would help a lot.
give some breathing room,
Yeah.
right? Because you might be able to move around
I
or
could help.
navigate within the pod.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's helpful to know. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Strachan.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Barbara. It would take all evening to sort of unpack and brainstorm about a solution. So I think maybe for the sake of focusing and for the sake of staff, if we can, direct staff to meet and nail down the specifics of what they're looking for, and at the same time, try and source out some sources of funding or some other accommodation to address those short-term needs would be what we have to do.
Indeed, and I was heading towards inviting council to direct staff to offset up to 80% of the cost of the pods. It seems to me that I will note when we displaced the Historical Society from the courthouse building, we took responsibility for finding new space for them and worked fairly assiduously. I completely recognize the pods was in part that solution in the absence of other spaces that were available within the municipality. I do think we have a responsibility, as Councillor Strachan and others have noted, to support these theater groups in offsetting current space needs, which are urgent. And I personally think adding an extra pod, if it creates the accessibility to the costumes, which is clearly fundamental to how these performances are facilitated, then that should be also something that's contemplated by council. Councillor Strachan.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to the CAO. I don't know if this has been contemplated, but sea containers are not going to cost you $1,000 a month. And I don't know if purchasing one for use by the community would be a possibility. I know we have rules about sea containers. However, we have made exceptions and we have made adequate, put rules in place for people to follow within our community who have sea containers on their lands. And I'm wondering if that would be a possibility to explore, not only from a cost perspective, but also perhaps from a space perspective, because they would likely be larger than the pods that are currently being used. Yes, we'd have to find a space for it, but I think that would be the least of our troubles. just a thought for consideration. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Dunlop, can you speak to the practicality of one or the other, or is it premature?
I would ask at this point in time, Your Worship, if we could have a direction for an extension of the existing pods for the 60 days, then Ms. Torch, as well as Ms. Martin, myself, can meet with all of the groups to see what their short-term and long-term needs are, to see what alternatives, as well as any possible pricings within the community of additional space, and we could bring a report back in 60 days.
So my concern is you're going to run out. I'm not, are you optimistic you can be back here in 60 days with a report? Because I think it's the appetite of this council, one way or another, to help facilitate financially some of the costs attached to storage options. So my only concern with the 60-day timeline is it doesn't give you enough time, in which case I think this council, certainly through a motion, would consider a longer period of short-term support, if you will.
So if we can take that into consideration, Madam Mayor, we can say that we continue the cost of the pods by the municipality and such time that staff can bring an adequate report back to council in collaboration and in consultation with the groups.
I would also like to, if direction is required, it sounds to me that the current pod arrangement is untenable by the sheer volume of things that are in the pods. So personally speaking, the pods aren't a practical solution if you can't access the things that are in the pods. With that in mind, I think it might be the appetite of this council to add an additional pod in the short term in anticipation of an upcoming performance or two. I know there's multiple theater groups in the community, just so that the pods can perform their function. If there's storage, but the storage is not facilitating access to the things that are stored, then it sounds like another pod may be required. I'm going to look to council colleagues. I think at this point we're looking or speaking of costs in and around $1,000 a month. If I understand if we add an additional pod, that will add nominally to the cost. But I'm looking to council to see if you have that appetite, because it might buy everyone more time if we can access, if the things in the pods can be properly accessed. So to that end, council, perhaps we can formulate a motion to distill what we're seeking. Deputy Mayor?
I would support that part of any direction to staff, but not to leave Fragile Inheritance behind. That has, I think, more access to funds given the terms of reference of the Heritage Reserve Fund. So I think what I'd like to see is staff reach out to not only the theater, community theater in the choir groups, but also to Fragile Inheritance, sit down with Dr. Schuler and Alita Karstad to find out exactly what they're looking for and whether we can, in the short term, use some funds from the Heritage Reserve. So in terms of an additional pod, I think that's nominal, as you said. It might relieve some awkwardness or impossibility of managing what's stored in the other pods. But I'd also like to see if we can pursue Councillor Strachian's idea of a CCAN, yeah.
So perhaps, so I understand that you want to speak to Fragile Inheritance, and we haven't really delved into that issue. So if you don't mind, just seeking your indulgence, if we could treat these as two separate sets of direction, if you will. In regards to the pods, what I'm hearing, so I'm going to formulate a motion for someone to move in second, and please play with it if it's not right. So the direction to staff is that there be a continuance, or there be a commitment to continue to offset the costs of the pods with, as well, the addition of another pod to support access to the costumes. So that's the first set of direction. Yes, if there is an alternative, such as a sea container, go for it. But the interim storage arrangement, for which obviously the municipality is expending resources, my understanding, and I'll seek direction from my council, is that there is an appetite to continue to support those financial arrangements. Ms. Dunlop, did you want to add?
Yes, Your Worship, if I may, my only concern is I would have to confer with Director Torch as well as the operations group here. not sure we can have one fit in regards to the operations going on. So we can add that in absolutely with council's direction, but we'd look to work with the groups to see if that is actually required, if there's other alternatives before committing to the additional pod. We need to get out our measuring tape.
Okay, so you're limited by virtue of the land parcel on which the pods are being stored?
Your worship, they are actually just at the other end of the parking lot at this point in time, but we just want to make sure that we can fit everything in and not impact the operations here otherwise, but we will work with the groups in regards to other alternatives before we return to council.
Indeed. I mean, what I'm hearing is that the pod storage currently is not achieving the desired need, which is to facilitate access to the costume. So if an additional pod or other measures are required, I think council has the appetite to support those. So I'm going to look for a mover and a seconder for the following motion is that the municipality continue to offset the financial costs of the current pods with consideration of an additional pod. If that is the will of all involved. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
You had mentioned up to 80% of the cost?
Certainly,
Or
again,
are you putting?
I leave that to council. So if that is desired to stipulate up to 80%, that is certainly one way to proceed or not. I don't know the financial circumstances of the groups, so.
Well, I could probably say without asking them that it's dire.
So I think at this point, until staff come back with an additional report, the motion I'm suggesting is that the municipality continue to offset the costs for the existing pods with consideration of an additional pod or alternative storage scenario to meet the needs of the group. I would look for a mover. Councillor Strachan, Deputy Mayor, we're good. Any other comment on this? I'm not seeing any. I'm calling question. All in favor. Okay, that carries. Thank you. All right, Deputy Mayor, you want to speak to fragile inheritance? So I will invite you to do so now, and then we can speak specifically to how you are proposing to resource and direct staff to engage with the relevant parties. Go ahead.
I guess I could formulate this as a motion that we could discuss, and that is that council direct staff to meet with representatives of Fragile Inheritance. They have a board. They're a nonprofit group. To understand what their short-term requirements are, and I would say next 12 months, and to come back with a report about costs associated. The source of that cost would be the Heritage Reserve. Thank you. Somehow I have difficulty with the word reserve.
Okay, I was just asking our new clerk and Ms. Jeannot if that motion was captured. Do we, for the most part, does everyone understand Deputy Mayor's motion? Because if he's moving, I'll look for a seconder, please. Do we have a seconder? We will need one. Councillor Strachan? Okay. And colleagues, is there anything else you wish to say on this matter? All right. So I will call the question then. All in favor? Okay, that carries. And that deals with the matter of fragile inheritance. So with that, colleagues, do we need a quick 3 minutes before we move on to the next file? Or do we feel well equipped to carry on? I believe we just have Ms. Martin's report, the Bedell Road supplemental report. Maybe we'll invite Ms. Martin to present, and if we need to take a quick reprieve, just given that we've been going for a while, then we can do so then. But I'm at the discretion of council in terms of how you want to proceed with the next portion of the agenda. People benefit from 5 minutes or no? We see, carry on? Okay. Ms. Martin will give you the benefit of presenting your report, and then we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this matter is returning this evening, and perhaps if the clerk would flip to the site plan that was provided for context, we'll just go down to the next one, the next page, the third page. Thank you. This matter is returning to council after it was deferred following the public meeting that was held on April 15th. Council has been circulated or copied on all correspondence from members of the public as well as the applicant. At the public meeting, residents presented concerns in opposition to the request from the applicant to add cannabis microprocessing, cannabis microcultivation, outdoor growing of cannabis, and cannabis research to the property. Concerns cited included odors, increase of activity, impacts on local wells, and buffering and screening into the site, among others. After the public meeting, Dr. Gozine submitted a revised site plan. The site plan, which is on the screen, now proposes a 50-meter setback from the property lines as shown on the map. So that 50-meter setback would apply to any facility associated with the microprocessing or the microcultivation, as well as the outdoor growing area, which is set well more than 50 meters back from the property line. This 50-meter setback would effectively help create a 70-meter setback from the proposed area where the microcultivation and microprocessing would occur from the front property line of a residential dwelling located across Bedell Road. So that takes into account the 50-meter setback from the property line, as well as the road allowance for Bedell Road, which adds an approximate 20 meters. So that's how you get to 70 meters from that sensitive setback to a residential dwelling. And based on the analysis of the proposed setback line, the closest residential dwelling, just the dwelling itself, would be approximately 100 meters from that building line that is shown on the map. Municipal staff reviewed the D-Series guidelines that are published by the Ministry of Environment. These guidelines are meant to provide guidance on industrial facilities and appropriate setbacks associated with them. The municipality zoning bylaw requires that buildings and structures associated with microprocessing and microcultivation be set back a minimum of 150 meters from a sensitive land use where air treatment is provided. That's for the buildings and the structures. The request by the applicant is to reduce this to approximately 70 meters, acknowledging that proposed 50-meter setback plus the distance created by Bedell Road to a sensitive land use. Based on staff's review of the D-Series guidelines, a 70-meter setback aligns with a Class 2 industrial facility. These types of facilities are considered to be medium-scale operations with periods of nuisance impacts. So the reduction would align with the ministry recommendations for a Class 2 facility. At the public meeting, discussion arose regarding setback requirements for the outdoor cultivation area, as well as a question in regards to a comment from Bylaw Services to locate the cultivation area further into the property. So the setback requirements for outdoor cultivation, as established in the comprehensive zoning bylaw in an agricultural zone, is 30 meters from a property line as it relates to the establishment of security fencing, and security fencing is a requirement for outdoor cultivation of cannabis. The applicant is proposing to locate this area more than 50 meters from a property line, and the zoning bylaw before council this evening would establish that 50-meter minimum requirement. Concerns over the fact that the setback should be 300 meters, I want to address that, as the regulation of that 300-meter setbacks only applies to structures as it is written within our zoning bylaw. In regard to structures for cannabis cultivation in the agricultural zone, the bylaw establishes, the zoning bylaw as it exists, establishes a 100-meter setback from a property line for property zoned agriculture. And I do want to recognize that while this property currently has a rural zoning with an exception provision, the underlying designation of this property is agriculture. Therefore, the proposed outdoor cultivation area meets the intent of the municipality's general provisions as set out in section 6.9 of the zoning bylaw as it relates to setbacks and property lines for the outdoor cultivation. Through a review of the correspondence, there were requests to provide further regulation and commitments ahead of the site plan control process. The municipality is limited in its authority across some of these asks. Site plan control is a requirement to regulate any buildings where microprocessing and microcultivation will be occurring, as well as for areas being used for outdoor growing cannabis. Site plan control would limitedly apply to outdoor cultivation only insofar as it identifies the location on the property and the security fencing requirements. The applicant has agreed as part of the site plan process to provide a site servicing plan, including a hydrogeological study, which would be required to establish or convert any buildings or structures that would be used for microprocessing and microcultivation. A concern was raised in regard to crop irrigation and a request that the municipality require a hydrogeological study for this activity. As it relates to the irrigation of crops on the property, including the outdoor growing of cannabis, the municipality has less authority to require a hydrogeological study. The Planning Act and subsequent policy documents do not differentiate one agricultural crop from another. While there may be federal regulation of cannabis plants, the definition of agricultural crops and normal farm practices is regulated by the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Agribusiness, more specifically through the Farming and Food Production Act. At this time, the municipality has not identified a planning approval trigger or other regulatory mechanism that would authorize the mandatory submission of a hydrogeological study solely for the outdoor cultivation of a crop. This is a standard that we have not applied anywhere else within North Grenville. As the lands have previously and continue to be used for the cultivation of hemp without the requirement of a hydrogeological study, and the proposed cannabis cultivation will be on a smaller scale compared to the existing 5 acres of hemp, which is about 0.7 acres, staff are of the opinion that a hydrogeological study related to the growing of outdoor crops is not a requirement to be demonstrated, as demonstrated by the lack of legislative authority. A request was also made for soil assessments related to agricultural capability and suitability for the growing of cannabis. Staff did not require a soil assessment as the growing of crops on the property had already been established since the zoning application in 2022, which was when the hemp operation was established. In regards to biomass and waste handling, these are matters that are regulated by federal licensing, and the municipality does not have regulatory control over these matters. Staff acknowledge that the proposed zoning amendment will include both outdoor agricultural cultivation of cannabis and indoor processing activities. Any requirements for technical studies must be granted in applicable planning authority and proportionate to the land use impacts being considered. Outdoor cultivation of crops is generally treated as an agricultural use and does not on its own merits justify an odor management study requirement. Lastly, there was a request to include requirements within a future site plan agreement related to ongoing monitoring. In regards to air quality and odor monitoring, this is generally not a zoning enforcement matter. The Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Agribusiness are the authorities as it relates to normal farm practices, and the federal government has jurisdiction over cannabis operations and their licensing requirements. Groundwater monitoring tied to private wells typically would fall under the authority of the Ministry of Environment or through a local source water protection plan. While the property is located within a wellhead protection area C with a vulnerability score of less than 6, this area is considered to be a moderate to low level vulnerability area. High risks for a wellhead protection area C with a score of less than 6 would be related to major facilities such as a waste management facility, fuel storage, chemical handling, and more industrial types of uses. Given the scale of the proposed processing and the fact that there's already outdoor cultivation occurring on the property, staff are of the opinion that ongoing groundwater monitoring is not required. Typically, ongoing well monitoring is required, again, around those more heavier land uses, which include landfills and heavy industrial bulk fuel storage. Agricultural input records were also requested, but this is a matter that is not regulated by the municipality. The municipality could be challenged on its legislative authority to require this application. Applications of materials on agricultural land are again regulated by the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Agribusiness. The requirement and request for a 4-year assessment of the site management plan is beyond the legislative authority for the municipality to request as part of site plan control. And then there was also a request for a neighborhood notification protocol in regards to notifying the neighbors when there are changes. This is not a land use planning consideration. While it may be a good neighbor practice to be undertaken, the municipality has no legislative authority to require this, but we do encourage any business or operation to maintain those good neighbor ties. To that end, before council this evening is a revised zoning bylaw amendment that recognizes the proposed changes before you this evening, which is that 50-meter setback from the property line to create a greater buffer from the residents along Bedell Road. Thank you.
Okay, colleagues, thank you so much. So we'll open it up for questions at this stage of the game in the event that the information Ms. Martin has provided highlights some additional concerns or accommodations that have been proposed to address resident concerns. Any questions? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To Director Martin, But first of all, thank you for handling what has turned out to be a very complicated file. And as recently as last night, I think council was emailed from a resident who lives close by, a rather lengthy rebuttal to the supplementary report. But what it boils down to for me is the one request he had to require the outdoor cultivation component to be subject to the same standard of evidence and precautionary oversight that we established for Flourish. So could you address that request and tell me whether we could consider it, or if we can't, why not?
Thank you for the question. And again, it's an interpretation of a comment that was provided. In regards to the standards in regards to Flourish that were established after, that comes out of the cannabis growth study that council had dictated through the interim control bylaw 6 years ago. And as part of that, the study and the subsequent zoning amendment that followed, subject to the appeal to the OLT, it established specific zoning regulations for cannabis cultivation in the agricultural area. And as such, as described within my presentation and within the report, under section 6.9 of the comprehensive zoning bylaw, outdoor cultivation, the setback is in relation to the fencing, security fencing, which is 30 meters. And in this case, it exceeds those requirements. The zoning of the property is rural, so we'd be looking to establish the same standards in the agricultural zone as in the rural zone, just to recognize that that differentiation. But it's still within spirit of section 6.9 as it speaks to outdoor cultivation in an agricultural zone.
So in other words, it's something we can't consider.
Through your worship to the deputy mayor, I mean, council can certainly request an amendment to the proposed zoning bylaw. Right now, it's a 50-meter setback from the front property line, just keeping in mind that the more you move that line back, the further it gets. The standard for buildings and structures with air ventilation is 150-meter setback, and the standard for if there is no air ventilation is 300 meters. Those apply to, again, buildings and structures used for the microprocessing and microcultivation and not the outdoor cultivation.
Any
Thank-
follow-up, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Thank you. No, I just a comment. I'd like to thank Dr. Gozian for coming back. The reason that we had it referred is to see if there couldn't be some further accommodation for the concerns that residents had. So thank you for doing that.
All right, Councilor Sullivan, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Director Martin, I appreciate your supplemental report on and the additional information. I also have been doing some extra research too to try and figure out what the best way to move forward is and to make an evidence-based decision. And I'm a little concerned about the fact that 150-meter setback for indoor cultivation with appropriate air ventilation in the building is required. And yet, when you're growing it outdoors, 50 meters is deemed to be okay. And yet, there's a lot of research that talks about the heavy smell, the skunky, fuel-like smell at the peak of the late flowering. And I understand that it is a short time of the year, but it also is the same time of the year that people in the area will want to sit outside and enjoy their own outside spaces. So there's also more research that I uncovered also from Columbia University, which was cited in the some of the documents that we received, about the distance that the odor travels. Because outdoor plants are exposed to the elements, there's no air filters or walls to contain the odor, and the distance traveled can travel surprisingly far on a breezy day. It can be 50 to 100 meters away. On still humid mornings, the odor of mature plants can reach even further. Also, the time of day is typically strongest early in the morning or at dusk when the air is cool, still, and humidity allows the scent molecules to linger before dissipating. So it is something that I think that we need to take into serious consideration. When we had to deal with the flourish issues that we were presented with, we had to be reactive at that point because it was already established, it was already happening. And so I think now we have the opportunity, and I feel we have the responsibility to be proactive to prevent the nuisance and the terrible concerns that all the neighbors in Oxford Station that lived close to Flourish had to cope with and deal with. Some of the other information that I found out was that, if I can find it here, the security fencing requires monitoring. And so that may well involve cameras and extra lighting, which also here it is, perimeter of the site must be monitored at all times by visual recording devices to detect any attempt or actual unauthorized access to the site where the plants are growing outdoors. So this may also add to the concerns for the people in the neighborhood with excessive lighting and their enjoyment of their property. So I think we need to be absolutely sure, I need to be absolutely sure that these things will be mitigated before I would be in favor of allowing outdoor cultivation of the cannabis. I think clearly the hemp there hasn't been any concerns about the hemp. But before I would agree to this, I would want to be sure that we know that this isn't going to be a problem that we could have avoided. There was another thing also from Columbia University about the odor, and I may not find it quickly, but maybe someone else would like to make a comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Sullivan. Any other comments at this stage? And I'll invite Ms. Martin to respond to what's been highlighted. I know there are some fundamental jurisdictional issues that limit the municipality's capacity to regulate certain aspects of the production. And certainly that's where I've been trying to turn my attention in terms of what is doable within a complicated regulatory environment where the municipality is not the only player. So Ms. Martin, just given what Councillor Sullivan has highlighted as some concerns, and they've been expressed by neighbors, of course, do you have comment at this stage?
Thank you, Your Worship. In regards to security, fencing, and lighting, those are matters that are regulated by site plan control. We have achieved lighting compliance. I know when the Flourish operation first established, lighting was a major concern, but we were able to work with that business to find a solution that had a reduced impact, and it was the type of lighting. I think they ended up going to like an infrared type of lighting where the cameras could still pick up what was happening, but it wasn't intrusive into the property owners that are surrounding. In regards to the Columbia study, it is not something that I have read. It's not the science behind cannabis plants itself isn't particularly a land use planning matter that we would consider. And the municipality would, from my professional opinion, would have to hire someone to peer review that study to understand the implications as it relates to this application if we're applying to it. But that wasn't a requirement for submission as part of the zoning application itself. The proposed setback is greater than 50 meters from the property line. I don't have that exact exact distance. But as mentioned, in regards to the establishment of outdoor growth of cannabis, an agricultural zone was seen as appropriate because that's where agricultural uses are typically exist. I do acknowledge that we have a large rural area where we have a mix of rural and agricultural uses as well as residential uses. We have a very large parcelized rural area, which makes it oftentimes difficult to establish uses that may be appropriate in an agricultural designation or an agricultural zone. But to that end, I'm not an expert on cannabis plants. I cannot speak to their properties, but I can speak to land use planning measures and the tools that we have available to us to help mitigate these concerns.
Councillor Strahan?
Thank you, through Madam Mayor, to Director Martin. Based on the experience that we had with Flourish, which was protracted and painful in many different ways for residents to live by and for the business owner, as well as for members of council and staff, do you feel that based on that experience and what we learned from that process, that we have adequately addressed the most significant concerns to the best of our abilities in this current proposal?
It's my opinion that by adding in the additional setbacks as it relates to the structures, that we're meeting, back when we did the cannabis study, one of the considerations for setbacks, and council was given a range of setbacks they considered, was the D-Series guidelines, which established that 70-meter setback from a sensitive land use. That is still achieved here with the 50-meter property line setback that is greater than the setback required for ERA cannabis, which is on Town Line Road. I believe they meet just the minimum zone standards for the industrial zone for setbacks. And it's set back much further from the setbacks for Flourish, which are located much closer to County Road 20. What I do want to note is that neither of those facilities have outdoor growth of cannabis, but they are larger production facilities that are going to have the ability to produce much more cannabis than what a microprocessing license would provide. So the micro aspect of the operation is limited in scale, both in the zoning bylaw, but as well as through federal licensing. So it's difficult from like what we learned from Flourish, because this application is slightly different in that they're looking to establish the outdoor growth of cannabis. But again, as I presented earlier this evening, the section 6.9, which speaks to cannabis cultivation, considers setbacks of 30 meters from property lines to where that security fencing exists, and then 100 meters for those structures.
Councillor Strahan?
Thank you, through Madam Mayor, to Director Martin. Yes, I understand the setbacks, and I understand that they're exceeding what we have seen previously. Odor is a hard thing to control once you're outside. I don't know, you live in the country, you smell all sorts of wonderful things. So this is a different odor, I suppose. But I suppose lighting was another area that, and I think you've addressed that here. I'm seeing nods from members who are here regarding this file. So I think that they're notionally in agreement with providing appropriate lighting so that it doesn't interfere with neighbors. Those are the three main areas that come to mind from my recollection of dealing with Flourish. I think that overall noise considerations are different, obviously, because we're not dealing with a building with fans and so on that are running. That's not the same consideration here, but perhaps other members of council, Mayor, will remember any other items that came as a result of the discussions with Flourish. But from this discussion, I think that you've hit on the majority of them and that you've addressed them appropriately. Thank you.
Any other comments, colleagues? So I'll go back to Councillor Sullivan. I did want to ask about dark sky policies in regards to lighting. Flourish, as we will remember, in fact, didn't adhere to dark sky policies. I recently drove by Flourish again, and it is a very brightly lit facility. I don't know if the dark sky policies have remained. I don't know if there's continued compliance with dark sky policies, but certainly there were. I don't know if there's a tension between the municipality's dark sky policies and what's mandated by another level of government when it comes to lighting. So certainly something that I think would be helpful for us to understand is, can we impose dark sky lighting notwithstanding the considerations from other levels of government or the needs of the producer?
Thank you for the question, Your Worship. So yes, we do enforce dark skies compliance policy when it comes to our site plan. So as part of their application for site plan control, they'll need to provide a photometric plan that demonstrates 0-foot candles at the property boundaries. They do have a lot of space, being set back more than 50 meters to achieve that. They'd have to just demonstrate how they're going to have their lighting. Typically, it's pointed down, it's not pointed out. You can put shields on lighting. You can look at different lighting alternatives to help reduce those impacts. So that would be a requirement of site plan control to address the lighting and the type of fixtures that they're using to control any intrusion projected outwards towards properties.
Thanks. Councillor Sullivan, I know you're waiting.
I'm going to, if I may, is there a reason why you don't want to grow this cannabis indoors? Rather, why you want it to be grown outdoors? Or why the applicant wants it outdoors rather than inside?
Through Your Worship, I cannot answer that question. The applicant would have to provide the rationale.
Because some of the studies that I read claim that cannabis, this was from Vermont, that soil growth and sun-soaked cannabis is a superior product, and that the testing proof is to smell it, and that it's decidedly more pungent and therefore, in their mind, a better quality. So is that why they want to grow it outside rather than indoors, where you can mitigate the odors in a better way? Do we?
See the applicants shaking their heads. This isn't a public meeting, and so while we may wish to invite the applicant down to provide some sort of comment, I prefer to just hear any other concerns from council before we potentially go in that direction. This issue was dealt with robustly at the last meeting, where all sides were heard at length. I wasn't at that meeting. My deputy mayor ably chaired it, and I know you were all engaged. We're not looking for a repeat of that public meeting. However, if there are questions that council needs answered, we could invite the applicant to speak very briefly to their intentions. So certainly we can go there, but I want to ask council colleagues if there are any other concerns at this stage or questions they wish to ask of our staff. Ms. Martin, in terms of the enforcement of a site plan, as you've proposed it, where do you see mechanisms for that enforcement?
Thank you, Your Worship. In regards to site plan control, it dictates things. And again, it depends on what we're requesting. It would dictate the location of the security fencing and entrench that. If they go outside of that, they need an amendment to their site plan. It identifies buildings associated with those uses. I do want to acknowledge that they could put up an accessory agricultural structure to park a tractor in. That wouldn't apply these standards, but using any of the facilities, it would look at lighting around the facility. As discussed with the applicant, we've talked about a hydrogeological study and site servicing for the building itself associated with the microprocessing and microcultivation within the building structure. Those are the matters that we would have regulatory authority over. Where it becomes more murky is when we start to wade into the conversation of what is a normal farm use and who has regulatory authority over normal farm practice, which is a provincial legislative matter, and then you've got the federal government who regulates the facilities itself. So it's a tiered level of responsibility, and each level of government has a different lens in which they apply. But if there were issues with lighting, they were not compliant, we'd be able to enforce what was provided in the site plan, which would have demonstrated the standards to which we would require them to be built to.
Thank you. Any follow-up, Councillor Sullivan? And then maybe we will go to the applicant for the most briefest of comment to address the single question that's been asked. Councillor Sullivan, do you have anything else?
Thank you. If I may, all of the studies or the research that I have drummed up in recent days talks about the responsibility. It falls on the municipality to ensure measures are in place to limit outdoor odors, given that they are more pungent. And it also talks about that the federal government and Health Canada only regulates odor for indoor commercial production of cannabis. And it's up to the local municipality to regulate outdoor growth of cannabis. So why can't we have jurisdiction over what we are prepared to agree to at the municipal level?
Can you provide more precision on the question around odor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, my understanding in my research when preparing the cannabis study was that it was treated largely as a normal farm practice, which is regulated by OMAFA. Should council wish for me to delve further into this matter, I would need to acquire a legal opinion as to what limitations we do and do not have in regards to matters of nuisance, whether it's odor, whether it's noise. These are things that are subjective and can be very difficult to enforce should you have such a bylaw, because again, measuring something that can be seen subjectively by different people and the standards and thresholds of what you have to meet can be difficult. But that would be a matter that I would have to go out for a legal opinion on.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. So, Council, that's for your consideration this evening in terms of advancing the motion, whether or not we want to give further consideration to odor based upon Ms. Martin's highlighting that she probably isn't fully equipped necessarily to address all aspects of the odor question as posed by Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Sullivan, I'm going to give you one more turn at this, and then we're going to have to determine whether or not we'll hear directly from the applicant before considering the motion at hand.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a closing comment then is that I think this isn't a normal farm crop. It is different. You don't have to put a security fence around your soybeans or your corn. And I think this has to be treated differently because it can influence the quality of life and of people in the neighborhood. And if it means that the crop should be grown indoors instead, where the odor can be mitigated and monitored, then I think that may be what we just need to do the right thing here and do it right.
Council, at this time, do we wish to hear from the applicant briefly on why they're proposing to grow the crop outdoors? If that's the case, can I invite the applicant to come down and briefly speak to that?
Okay, I'll speak briefly on that point. So the cultivation outdoors is primarily for cost efficiency and for research purposes, because these are inevitably cannabis plants that are being used for medical purpose that need to be cultivated alongside other plants in our research plot. And so that's why you see it in the 5-acre space. There's going to be other hemp plants and other plants that are considered under our cannabis research license. The costs are fundamentally higher in an indoor environment, and it's much more concentrated. You have the lighting in an indoor environment that's required, which is not required in the outdoor environment. I'd like to point out that in a fenced field, we wouldn't put any lighting, so there would be no impact on lighting, because if you were to put lights on the plants, that would affect the timing of flowering and inflorescence. So we would agree, even in writing, to put zero impact on lighting, because we're very confident that we would never put lighting on the plants. But if you have any questions on odor, I've actually submitted a scientific report on literature on odor. So I just want to caution on certain things that you could read online from different sources, that they may not be reliable or in the context of this specific application. This is a micro cultivation. It's very small. It's half the size of a hockey rink. If we were planning on doing a facility to scale of other cannabis companies, I would echo some different concerns than I am today. But the sheer size, the fact that it's a micro cultivation, I think already, and the fact that we've increased the setback already addresses a lot of the concerns. If we come back to the council with a standard cultivation with a much higher scale operation, I think those would be fundamentally different concerns that we would be talking about today. And I understand our different biases and opinions about cannabis, but OMAFRA, as Director Martin has clearly highlighted, considers outdoor cannabis as a normal farming practice. So that would be the standard opinion that we would apply here, even if we would have personal opinions differently. OMAFRA, being the provincial regulatory body on this matter, would consider outdoor cannabis as a normal farming practice, and that's clearly stated in their guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, anything else you wish to ask of Ms. Martin at this time? Nope. Okay. So then we have a staff recommendation in terms of proceeding with the consideration of the amended rezoning. I will look for someone to move that motion, or alternatively to defer or refer, subject to further consideration. I'm at your discretion. So, Deputy Mayor.
I'll move in favor of the recommendation.
All right, and that is that council enact bylaw 4626 to amend the rural 67 zone to permit microprocessing, micro-cultivation, cannabis research, and outdoor cultivation of cannabis to the property at 2469 Bill Road. Do we have a seconder? Councilor Strachian? Okay. Any further comments at this stage of the game? Deputy Mayor.
Just a personal comment. I live on Bedell Road, and my neighbor farms behind me and beside me corn or soy, depending on what's more profitable. And, you know, around this time of year or a little bit earlier, he often sends an email to the local Facebook community group saying, I'm about to put some manure on the field. And it's part of country living. Now, subjectively, some people might find that very pungent and objectionable, but I don't particularly. And the same thing goes for in the fall when neighbors or Mr. Gosian has flowering plant and there's an odor. So I'm basing my positive response to the recommendation primarily based on the fact that it's zoned agriculture, and I'm not willing to make a distinction between soy, corn, and cannabis, even though they smell differently and the agricultural operations surrounding them often smell differently too. Thank you.
All right. So motion's on the table. Is there any further comment or concern? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? All right. It carries. Thank you very much, colleagues. We'll move on. We know this has been a difficult issue and lots of complexity. Thanks to our staff for doing our best to navigate these waters. I don't think there's a perfect scenario in these instances. We can only do our best with the information we have provided. So there is no correspondence this evening. Motions and notices of motion. Colleagues, any notices? Any notices of motion or any motions? There are no motions, and I don't think there are any notices of motions. We have no petitions or written communications this evening. We have no miscellaneous or unfinished business, so I'll go to confirmatory bylaw. That is that confirmation bylaw 67. I apologize. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Wilson, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Peckford. Just an announcement for miscellaneous. Beth Donovan Hospice is having a walk on Sunday, May 31st. It's a fundraiser. So there's public media, social media out there. So just want to remind everyone to get out and support Beth Donovan.
Great, thank you. And that is a most worthwhile cause. And certainly, Councillor Wilson, you reminded me that I also skipped over period of questions from members of the public. So I don't know if there's any questions this evening from members of the public. Yes, go ahead. Welcome, and if you can just say your name. Yep. We should be able to hear you soon.
All right, thanks. Sorry. Oh, okay. My name is Chris Turnbull. Hello, everyone. Sports Dome. So thank you, Tana, for your presentation. All right, I have just a few questions. I need my glasses. I've read the master plan. Unfortunately, I'll never get that time back, although it's well done. And there's 4 pages that you identified where there is an interest in a sports dome. And I know how these things are organized, and I know the types of questions that happen in public meetings around generating interest in things. Of that report, 4 pages that identify, or parts of 4 pages that identify a sports dome, what else was identified as being of interest? Public indoor pool was one. There's a few walking areas, the canoe outdoor spaces. Primarily from what I read, it was outdoor spaces that were a priority. So I'm just going to state that because it's public. People should read that report. In terms of where the sports dome is, my question is, when NG residents are being asked about the sports dome, all the sports enthusiasts, of which I'm one, as a child of the 70s, participation was prime. I don't think there's been a sport I haven't played except for hockey, because I'm no good on ice. But I'd like to know if, when it was discussed, was it identified that this would be on prime agricultural land? It's the best chunk, actually, of the campus, and you can find that out fairly easily. Was it? Did anyone say, do you want a dome on prime agricultural land, or do you want a dome? That's question 1. Question 2 is 2 places were identified, FFC, 13 acres. Interesting, given that it's an intensification layer now. The sports dome was another for the agricultural college. Did anyone identify anywhere else? South Gore? 3rd question, is it serviced and is it in the urban settlement area?
Ms. Dunlop, do you want to start, or would you prefer that? I know Ms. Torch wouldn't have all the planning insight, or maybe Ms. Martin is here and can speak to some of it. I can clarify that the intensification layer for the proposed 13 acres, Council has directed the removal of the intensification layer, so it will not be considered as part of the official plan. So that's one update to provide at this stage.
If I may, Your Worship, we can have Director Torch start, and then we can tag team in.
Thank you for the questions. I'm going to start with South Gore. I don't have all of the pertinent information as to why we used campus lands. That was before I had started here, so I don't have all that necessary information to provide you today. However, I will pass over to CEO Dunlop. She will be able to explain that a little bit better. In regards to South Gore, there is not enough room to facilitate the scale of the dome in that facility. Also, it's not serviceable as of right now. So there's no services underneath the infrastructure. So it's not ideal to use that location, and just based on the size and location, and also the current use for the space is heavily used by the soccer club already, and removing those soccer fields where it's currently are would essentially, we wouldn't have any other location currently to restore that. So I'm going to just ask CEO Dunlop just to refer back to why the campus lands were chosen, if you don't mind.
Through you, Your Worship. The first reason the campus lands were chosen was the first combination of conversations actually came with one of the French boards. They're building a new school, you may have noticed, on concession, and that was part of the first idea of when the dome in expansion of the Parks Rec master plan, which identified some indoor recreational spaces needed to be increased and available to the residents of North Grenville. I'm going to go take it one step further. Yes, there will be municipal water supplied. The detailed design in regards to sanitary sewer is still underway. In the current plan, there is a detailed design for a large commercial septic or connection to the municipal sanitary. we want to make sure that we have sufficient capacity. As you know that the sewage plant is currently under construction, and we are looking at the expansion of the sewage capacity availability, not just for development, but also for expanding infrastructures. The reason we looked at campus versus FFC, we did look at that 13 acres. It is very close to County Road 43. The environmental concerns in regards to the salt spray, other things, as well as the setbacks from the environmental protection zone, which is that larger ditch closer to veterans. We didn't have the width to be able to accommodate, so that's why this specific chunk was chosen. I cannot answer your question in regards to the agricultural.
The other element of this is it's 17 million, give or take, given we're in a different economic climate. Who knows what will happen as we move forward. For the sports dome, does that include the servicing?
Through you, Your Worship? Yes.
Does, okay. The campus also had a master plan. It is zoned agricultural at county level, institutional at municipal, I believe. I believe the French Catholic school build on concession was actually intended for within the campus, and that little chunk was expropriated as agricultural land built on, and there's been a switch now. So the soccer fields now were switched for that. I think that master plan at the college seems to have been abandoned. We just had a discussion about agricultural designation in relation to the cannabis business, dark skies. It's not that far away. Why is a business given agricultural designation priority as opposed to the campus lands, which are potentially just outside the settlement area, will also suffer from dark sky issues potentially. It is an ecological zone. You did a presentation whenever I was here last few weeks ago on climate change. I'm very, very curious about the need for the sports dome. 200 plus sports dome people is not a large population base if we're moving up to over 30,000 or 20,000 or whatever it is. I would love it, and I'm curious to know why there has been no public meeting. This is a community sports dome, I'm assuming. Why is it that there's only a Breakfast of Champions and the sports players who are being asked for their input? And Kurt Vonnegut writes about Breakfast of Champions, by the way.
So certainly at this stage, I will defer to Director Torch, but certainly through other public engagement exercises, we've received a broad array of feedback. And tonight's meeting obviously was another opportunity for members of the public to issue comment, as you have. But certainly, I think one could say when it comes to this recreational amenity, as I understand it from folks that have been here a very long time, public engagement has been robust. There may be, as we get closer to the date and if funding does materialize, another opportunity, certainly through the Parks and Rec Master Plan process, to speak about all things recreational. We, in fact, expedited the approval of the next Parks and Rec Master Plan tender. So we gave that direction to Ms. Torch back in January ahead of the budget, because we know there's such a great interest in so many recreational amenities here in North Grenville, and we've done a lot of work to advance a number of them, including a feasibility study around an aquatic facility. But the reality is, at this stage of the game, the next Parks and Rec Master Plan will give us further opportunity to explore some of those things. So I know, Director Torch, you were saying earlier today that now that you have the approval for the go-ahead for the Parks and Rec Master Plan, you'll be, through obviously the leadership and expertise of that consulting firm, moving ahead with some important public engagement when it comes to not just, of course, sports, rec, but also culture and heritage, which are a big part of it.
Okay, thank you. I'm hopeful that when that happens, that you note in the Parks and Rec Master Plan that it's on an agriculturally designated field, unless it becomes changed. And I would love to know the numbers of against. We know the numbers for, if there's a numbers for against or problem with.
For sure. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Yes, and I'll acknowledge Councillor Strachan.
Yes, thank you through Madam Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Turnbull, for coming here and asking questions. I did ask the question earlier regarding the number of residents that are represented by the groups that have participated, because I think 200 letters of support is a drop in the bucket for a population of our size, but it represents more, those individual groups represent more than 200 individuals, significantly more. The soccer club is easily 2,000 plus the other groups. So I think having that number would help clarify, I think, where there is broader representation through those organizations. Obviously, they're not surveying each one of the individuals for those organizations, but I think it would give an idea of what the advantage could be. I think, personally speaking, we're also looking at whether or not our community has the adequate spaces to meet, gather for all walks of life, for all stages and ages. And we're severely lacking in that. Talk to a teenager in this community and it's horrific. And I think this will give an opportunity for some. And I think that's where my follow-up question to Director Torch was also related to engagement with youth, to find out from them what they felt this space could use to make it a valuable space for them, not just for the elite athletes. So it is beyond sports. It is much greater than that. And I think that we will certainly see over time more people come out and speak to that. If there are folks who are against it, I mean, absolutely, they have an opportunity to come out and be heard, and they have an opportunity to voice their opinions. We don't often... people don't often hold back when they are vehemently against things. We hear from them often. So if there are concerns, public residents should be welcome to voice their concerns as well. And I understand your question about public meeting, but I just wanted to state that as well.
Yeah, thank you. A committee of the whole meeting would be wonderful, but thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. So colleagues, will go to confirmatory bylaw, and that is that the confirmation bylaw 6726 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed in open council. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor, Councillor O'Sullivan, please. Thank you. Calling the question. All in favor? And we'll move to adjournment at 9:32. Councillor Strachan and Wilson, if you don't mind, moving in second, adjournment at 9:32. And I will call the question. All in favor? Great. Thank you.